You're cordially invited. Released January 30th, 2025. Released on Amazon Prime. Directed by Nicholas Stoller. Written by Nicholas Stoller. Starring Will Ferrell, Reese Witherspoon, Geraldine Vishwanathan, and Meredith Hayner. Rotten Tomatoes score, 48%. Metacritic, 52. IMDb, 5.5. MPA rating R. Welcome back to Real Reviews. Like always, I am your host, Lee. Today we are talking about You're Cordially Invited, the newest Amazon exclusive movie. I want to get some bias out of the way. I rarely like Will Ferrell movies. I don't enjoy the type of humor that he is known for, but that aside, I am a fan of some of Nicholas Stoller's work like Get Him to the Greek and Forgetting Sarah Marshall, So Not All Is Lost. I won't be worrying about spoilers because the few trailers that exist gave away basically 100% of the plot. But let's talk about it. The acting in this movie is fine, which is to say that each and every person seems to embrace the character they were given, no matter how dumb that character is. I will point out that Jack McBrayer and Fortune Feimster are clearly super typecast for their particular roles. Will Ferrell does seem toned down here a bit compared to roles like Elf or Step Brothers. I don't think that Reese Witherspoon is anywhere as near over the top as she was in things like Legally Blonde, but she isn't super far. I don't really know who to call the protagonist and antagonist for this movie, as both Will and Reese fill each role depending on which storyline you think about. They both care about their individual families and the weddings that they are invested in, and they are both absolutely demented when it comes to the other person's wedding. I do feel like they both work much better when they are being carrying over when they are being the problem. I do think the side characters, including at sometimes the two brides, do feel almost completely pointless. Normally in a movie, especially with loads of characters in a small space, you want to feel like they are needed there, and I felt like you could almost cut out the two grooms and it would impact the movie minimally. There isn't a lot in terms of effects with the exclusion of an alligator, and it looks pretty terrible. While I do understand that cheap-looking props are often a thing that you can expect in comedy movies, I feel like they could have easily done better. I do feel like all things aside, the pacing feels fine. It isn't a movie that you will feel bored with even with its near 2-hour runtime. The opening of the movie is the worst part in this regard, but they quickly get into the meat of the story. I don't hate this movie. I didn't really find myself laughing a whole lot, but rarely did I find myself groaning at the movie, even during some of the more cringe-worthy moments. The story is the weakest part, and if you don't want to know about it, you can skip forward to the last bit of the video and get my rating. I will get right out in front of this. The story falls apart with the most basic level of scrutiny. So the plot is that Jim, played by Will Ferrell, calls the place that he and his wife got married to set up his daughter's wedding the next year, and the venue is a small island that can only support one wedding per weekend. While getting his reservation in place, the person doing it needs to find a new pin because hers won't right. Before she does that, she dies. Then Margot, played by Reese Witherspoon, calls to set up a wedding on the same day for her sister because they spent much of their childhood there with their grandmother. They put a card of file and whatnot. None of this is the problem. Weird, sure, but I get it. But over the whole next year, neither Jim or the wedding planner calls to check in, do walkthroughs, or anything. Which is pure insanity, especially because Jim seems to be so controlling and obsessed with making sure his daughter has the perfect day that there isn't any way that he wouldn't have called or taken his daughter to look at everything. When we get to the date, both parties show up and Leslie, played by Jack McBrayer, says that it goes to Margot and her sister because obviously Jim's daughter was never written into the book and the wedding planner never put a card on file for a deposit because she gets anxiety from making phone calls. But Jim is able to prove they had it first by using a pencil to show that even if the pen didn't work at the time, that his daughter's name was written in the book. Chaos ensues. While I do find that how Jim and Margot act is so ridiculous, and Jim especially would have likely had the police called on him, it doesn't compare to the bizarre levels of ineptitude that has to occur to get here. Also, the big through line is that Jim and Margot are very similar people and that they will end up together. This is a movie that if you like thoughtless wedding comedies, sure, I can say watch it. But it isn't one that I would say get Prime Video for, so it is basically a, as long as you get it for free, watch it level of recommendation. The story, antagonist, side characters, and that dang alligator being my key issues. Thank you so much for watching. If you enjoyed it, make sure to like, subscribe, and comment for more videos like this. I tend to have 2 videos out per week, real reviews like this or AI reviews depending on releases. Until next time.